This Tuesday, the people of Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina, Pope Francis' homeland, have paid the late pontiff several tributes. This way, the landmark obelisk became the main stage for a mapping that projected the image of the Pope together with the phrase, "Francis, the city prays for you." In addition, the Galileo Galilei planetarium was dyed yellow as a symbol of mourning, reflecting the deep sadness, solidarity and pride felt by the nation after the departure of Jorge Bergoglio. The ceremony not only celebrates the life and work of the spiritual leader, but also invites reflection and unity in a period of national loss. The death of Pope Francis has shocked the world and, of course, the Argentine Republic where the High Pontiff was born. A correspondent brings us some reflections of the people on the streets of Buenos Aires.
La muerte del Papa Francisco no fue en sí misma.
The death of Pope Francis was not in itself a surprise. His long convalescence foresaw this outcome. What did he leave? Among other things, ideas in the youngest hearts.
He
always motivated us with all his phrases.
Pope Francis was for me a figure that transcended the spiritual. Although I am a practicing Catholic and work in the Catholic field, the figure of Pope Francis was very special because he was very close, especially to the Argentinian people, and all my youth was accompanied by his pontificate, which I am deeply grateful for.
One of the virtues of Pope Francis, the Latin American Pope, was to bring together non-Catholics, atheists, agnostics, and doubters, who, yes, understood the message, uniting people.
He was a pope who was very much on the side of the most vulnerable. He was very much at the side of the poorest, creating consciences for those of us who perhaps are not so aware.
I am Paraguayan, and I think he vindicated the Paraguayan, Latin American woman. He is very special for us Paraguayans.
I brought a couple of phrases, many that I took from Instagram, and that Pope Francis reminded us that there is room for everyone in the church.
Se fue un papa diverso.
A diverse pope departed, leaving behind a great diversity of ideas.
Thanks to God, I had the opportunity to meet him in Rome. It is a memory that I will carry forever in my heart. At that moment, he advised me to go ahead, and I think that is what he would also advise us today, and will continue to tell us from heaven, to go ahead with our faith project.
He was showing us a reality that sometimes we want to sweep under the rug, and it shouldn't be that way. We have to see it, so he showed that, with his mistakes and successes, like every person. But I think that's one of the greatest legacies. To be attentive and to live as Matthew 25 says, "What you did for the least, you did for me."
Desde Buenos Aires para teleSUR, Fabián Restivo.
And in Cuba, the government officially inaugurated the 15th Health for All Trade Fair as part of the International Convention Cuba Health 2025. Government authorities officially opened the trade fair at the fairgrounds of the Convention Center in Havana. 117 foreign companies and 112 national companies participated in the exposition. During his speech, the Vice Minister of the Republic, Eduardo Diaz, categorically denounced the criminal unilateral measures imposed by the United States on the Caribbean island, which increased the blockade of the health sector on the island. Palestine authorities report that a new Israeli attack on residential complex killed 19 civilians in the city of Han Yunis. The preliminary report detailed that 10 children were among the victims. On the other hand, the authorities specified that bombardments were registered to the northeast of Rafah and against a tenth of displaced people in Jabalia. The Zionist army violated the ceasefire agreement by reactivating its criminal attacks on the coastal enclave on March 18th this year. Gaza authorities announced on Tuesday that the number of people killed by Israel has risen to more than 51,000 and at least 117,000 injured since the beginning of genocide perpetrated by the occupation in Gaza.
In Peru, despite the denunciations of social organizations, the Congress continues to shield the Minister of Dina Boluarte government as part of the impunity pact that allows them both to survive. Let's see.
La insatisfacción ciudadana con los ministros de Dina Boluarte continúa.
Citizen dissatisfaction with the president's ministers continues. However, Congress recently shielded the ministers in charge of health, education, and transportation.
6 Peruvians have already died as a result of this punishable negligence of Medipharma, which put this batch of physiological serum on sale. It is also not interested that we give a bad image to the world regarding not being able to build an airport in acceptable conditions, or the serious situation that the education sector is going through, or the issue of citizen insecurity, which for all is the main problem affecting the country. An average of 6 people die daily.
No ha importado que las violaciones a escolares.
It has not mattered that the violations against indigenous Awajan school children continue, nor that the expansion of the new Lima airport has been completed despite more than 3 months of delays.
Last year, we had a girl who committed suicide. There are students who were also abused by their teachers and committed suicide. These teachers continue to work as if nothing in their lives mattered to them, the dignity of the girls. And if we go to the ministry, to the schools that are sponsoring all this problem, all their life they have been sponsoring these problems, even in the cases they were paid, so that these teachers could not be prosecuted. It is really regrettable. There are very terrible things that have to be changed.
No, y es lamentable, de verdad. Hay cosas muy terribles que se tiene que cambiar.
Los hechos ocurren ante el reciente asilo político.
The facts occur before the recent political asylum granted to Nadine Heredia, wife of former President Ollanta Humala, a figure to which, according to analyst Willie Zababru, President Dina could appeal to also evade justice.
One of the possibilities for Mrs. Dina Bolivar to escape justice once her mandate is over is to leave the country, to flee, as Alberto Fujimori did, remember, as Alan Garcia tried to do in his second mandate and did in his first mandate. Remember, he spent 10 years in Paris. As now Nadine Heredia has done. It is an old trick used by the corrupt to flee justice and evade their responsibilities to the country.
La inadecuada supervisión en la elaboración.
The inadequate supervision in the preparation of the serum that caused the death of 7 people was not enough for the Congress to sanction the health minister.
Frequent inspections should be made. But the Ministry of Health is also responsible for not having contingency mechanisms in place when unfortunate events such as those we have experienced with the physiological serum occur. The physiological serum came out, it was distributed, and there are still quantities of physiological serum from this batch with high concentrations that have not yet been located and that end up being a risk for the citizens. We do not know where they are, and the traceability and immobilization system has not worked as expected.
Y el sistema de trazabilidad y de inmovilización no ha funcionado como se esperaba, ¿no?
Para los analistas consultados, se trata de una alianza.
For the analysts consulted, it is an alliance that does not defend the interests of the majority and only seeks impunity and survival in a pre-electoral context.
Desde Lima para Telesur, Ramiro Angulo.
And Russian President Vladimir Putin met with the Sultan of Oman, Haytham bin Tariq Al Said, who is in Moscow on a state visit. This is their first ever meeting between the two heads of state. Prior to that, they had spoken on the phone in March 2023, the first high-level bilateral contact between the two countries since the establishment of diplomatic relations. Both leaders pledged to work to enhance cooperation in different sectors. Putin also welcomed Oman's contributions to the negotiating process between Washington and Tehran around the Iranian nuclear dossier.
We strive to establish distinguished and beneficial relations between us that serve the people of both countries. Our meeting this morning was with a group of businessmen who are genuinely interested in developing this relationship. There are many fields of cooperation, whether in energy, agriculture, or trade, and many of them have already begun opening offices and exchanging visits.
And in this context, the Russian president extended the Sultan an invitation to an upcoming summit between the League of Arab States and Russia.
We plan to hold a summit between Russia and the Arab countries this year. Many of our friends in the Arab world support this idea. Your Majesty, if you find the time, We would be delighted to see you at this summit between the League of Arab States and Russia.
And in El Salvador, social movements condemned the proposal of President Nayib Bukele to exchange kidnapped Venezuelan migrants in a maximum security prison in the country. They also describe as hypocritical the president's affirmation that in his country there are no political prisoners. From San Salvador, our correspondent Roberto Wopresa with the details.
The organizations that make up the Popular Resistance and Rebellion Bloc raised their voices in condemnation of President Nayib Bukele's proposal to use imprisoned Venezuelan migrants as a bargaining chip.
We have strongly repudiated the cynicism of the Bukele regime, who in a desperate attempt to wash its image before the international community has ended up accepting that it is holding Venezuelan citizens hostage publicly on its X account, an alleged prisoner exchange between Venezuela and El Salvador. This act is nothing more than a propaganda maneuver to hide its own repressive and criminal policy against the Salvadoran people.
No más muerte, no más minería, y por eso nuestros compañeros están capturados.
This social movement affirms that in El Salvador, there is persecution of opponents and political prisoners.
Historical leaders of the Salvadoran left, persecuted for their legacy of revolutionary struggle, as in the case of Eugenio Chicas, members of social organizations such as Fidel Zavala, Atilio Montalvo, Pepe Malara, and other unionists. Environmental activists such as the Defenders of Cabanas imprisoned for opposing mining and neoliberal plundering. Journalists and critical communicators silenced for denouncing human rights violations.
Críticos silenciados por denunciar las violaciones a los derechos humanos.
The social movement regrets that El Salvador is adopting a strategy of interference.
We regret and condemn that these acts of interference continue to be repeated. It is also regrettable the vocabulary used by President Bukele when referring to the government of Nicolas Maduro, of Comrade Nicolas. This is really a smokescreen.
Realmente esta es una cortina de humo.
The FMLN also took a firm position. The Secretary General of the party considers that this is a maneuver previously planned by the global ultra-right.
Why have only Venezuelans been brought to the Secot prison in El Salvador? Why not Peruvians? Why haven't they deported people from other countries? And this is precisely the question we are asking ourselves at the international level. It is a plot prepared by the fascist right wing of Venezuela, by Marco Rubio, by the US, globalists, against countries that do not bow their heads before the pretensions of Donald Trump.
Officially, the Supreme Court of Justice and the Salvadoran Prosecutor's Office have not responded to the request made public on Sunday by the Venezuelan prosecutor, who asked for details of the migrants imprisoned more than a month ago.
Roberto Hugo Presa, teleSUR, El Salvador.
This Tuesday, the people of Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina, Pope Francis' homeland, have paid the late pontiff